Isn't the point of therapy to feel good after? Well, the truth is you finally opened up, and sometimes you're wondering if therapy is making things worse. And today's video is just about a couple of insights from a licensed therapist that actively works with clients 4 to 5 days a week. And if you've ever thought maybe I'm getting worse instead of getting better, you're not alone in that. I hear that constantly. And today I want to explain why this can happen and why it doesn't automatically mean that something is wrong in your therapy session. So let's start with point number 1. Therapy brings things to the surface. So let's say you're finally going to therapy, you unpack everything and maybe even some more. What I mean by that is clients unpack a lot more than they think they carry in a therapy session. A therapist's job is to unearth the pattern of your life, to also help you realize what you might be carrying, the beliefs underneath some of your levels of dissatisfaction, and it can make things worse. Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better, and we often spend years engaging in painful emotions before we even know that we are, and therapy finally creates a safe space to acknowledge those really painful emotions. And feeling sadness or disappointment or rejection for the first time in a safe space can feel so overwhelming that it feels uncomfortable. And sometimes it can feel like you shared more than you wanted to with an actual person. And I've had those conversations with clients as well. Sometimes I'll hear apologies like, I'm really sorry for being too much for you. And it's kind of similar to feeling like you've never done something before. It gets really uncomfortable. I remember my first time going to Topgolf. My swing sucked, and it still really does. But I've gotten comfortable about the swing, about using different golf clubs, etc. And when you're first being vulnerable with someone, even with a trained professional, it can feel like there's a lot more than you thought you had, or a truth can come out in a session and it just feels weird or wrong because you're not used to that. And Brené Brown calls this a vulnerability hangover, a University of Texas Austin researcher and the writer of Dare to Lead, Daring Greatly, etc. She's a really big proponent of sometimes being vulnerable does suck, but it ultimately leads to your greatest healing. And being aware of your pain isn't always the same as creating said pain. There are a lot of things that can happen in a therapy session. And so just don't be afraid if this feeling happens, okay? Number 2, your nervous system is reacting.